Today with Conversation Matters, I have two people in the studio with me, Catherine White, who is interpreting for us, and Millie Brother. Millie, thank you so much for making the time to talk to me.
Delighted to be here.
Thank you. Just for everybody who is listening, my name is Janie Lazar, and my entry, if you like, into the deaf and Coda worlds, the communities, has been one of great learning. I've realized in thinking that I had really got a grip of what was going on and how I could learn more and be of use within that community, I realized that actually I knew nothing. The more I spoke to different people, I mean, Millie, you're laughing, but it's so true. And very briefly, the first time I really encountered a deaf person was Joanne Chester, when I had approached her and she agreed to be a TEDx speaker. I had no idea how it was going to happen. And the first words that I said, because I'm nearly always the first to arrive, Joanne was hot on my heels. And my first words were, "I'm sorry," because I just didn't know what to do and how to do this. So as I say, fast forward, and with others within the Coda community in particular, what I've realized is that people like me just have no idea what to do, how to engage. We're terrified that we're going to upset somebody. And so we jump right in and do exactly that. We upset people and we cause offense because we are so concerned that we're going to make a mistake, get it wrong. And what I want to do, I suppose, with this series of conversations that I'm having is to give, if you like, people in the hearing world a greater understanding of the deaf community, the Coda community, how the two worlds work together, how we can learn to be more inclusive, because I think so much lip service is paid to being inclusive. So I suppose what I want to do is start listening and asking you a few of the things that I scribbled out earlier, and I've got my little post-it notes because they're fairly key questions. Millie, if I could take you right back to the beginning, because for people who are listening, Coda, child of deaf adult. I use the word Coda quite often now, and people always say to me, what does it actually mean? But Coda has been going for quite a long time. You are, even though obviously a grown-up, a child of deaf adults. How did all of this begin for you? Because there were two worlds.
Mhm.
Can you just tell me a little bit about that?
Well, yes, and I have to say you hit it right on the head. There were two worlds. And I have to start with my parents. I was born to two profoundly deaf parents, and I imprinted on deaf people. Deaf people were the norm for me. From a very early age, I somehow adjusted and managed to climb up the side of my crib that was by a light switch if I needed their attention at night. Children are resourceful, and I learned at an early age that I needed to do something to get their attention that was not auditory. How I did that, I don't know, but I've heard the stories again of how those adjustments are made. And then I valued my parents' deaf friends, and we went to the deaf community events and picnics. This was my norm. And then when I went to school and was interacting more with the hearing world, it became clear to me that yes, there were these two places and I could function in both of them. but there weren't words at that time. There wasn't vocabulary about deaf culture, American Sign Language, those types of things. So it was just a difference. And it wasn't until I went to university where I really felt I mainstreamed fully into the hearing world. And I realized that something felt off balance, not quite right. Something was missing. I had the deaf world I could participate with. I had the hearing world I could participate with. I had a foot in each world, but something about that seemed to be missing. Something in the core was missing for me. So after graduating from university and teaching for a few years, I was recruited by a Peace Corps volunteer. This is a voluntary group where you go overseas to do volunteer work, and they somehow combined my teaching experience with my sign language capability, and I went to teach at a preschool for deaf children. And at that time, I fell in love with those little deaf kids, and I realized it touched something in me that wanted to have also that strong connection with the deaf world. And it just so happened that a research team from Gallaudet University, which was the world's only liberal arts, four-year liberal arts university for deaf people, where my parents happened to meet. This team came through while I was teaching, and they said, why? They encouraged me to go up and do graduate work at Gallaudet University, which I had never considered before. So I did that for a few years. And again, I'm in the deaf world there. And I'm just weighing that out. That's not where I felt fully immersed. Well, if that wasn't where I felt immersed, and if the hearing world wasn't where I felt fully immersed, where are the people like me? Who are they? And so I set about to do an informal research project as part of my graduate studies, and I found 15 subjects who were hearing and had deaf parents. And this was a skewed population. I knew that because they were around the Gallaudet University environment. But nonetheless, I set up 15-minute interviews, and those interviews in some cases went on for hours. It's as though we gave each other permission to talk about all of our experiences. And there were strong similarities in some areas. We weren't exactly alike, but there was a resonance. There was a feeling of something that I wanted to continue and carry with me when I went back home to California. So I thought about what this might look like. And this is, of course, before computers were used so widely. So I figured, okay, I typed out a newsletter. And actually, before that, I typed out some position papers to send to some deaf community agencies to let them know what my thought process was. And then I typed out an introductory newsletter in 1983. And I coined the word Coda, children of deaf adults. And it actually was children of deaf adults, not necessarily child of deaf adults. And this is a musical term. Coda is a musical term. My parents encouraged my musical background. And when I saw that the definition in musical terms, coda is the ending piece of a prior passage of music. So it's related, of course, to the prior music piece, but it's different. It's an ending piece, it's different. And I felt like that. I was certainly related to my parents. I loved my parents. I respected and valued my relationship with them, but I was different. I could hear. That made something that set me apart somehow. So Coda, the term evolved. I sent out this newsletter, and there was no advertising. There was no internet to recruit or anything, but I got some amazing results. I heard from Codas in Finland and in Amsterdam and I got poetry. I was not expecting this to be far reaching. So that was the seed that I planted many years ago. And that has taken root and slowly spread its tendrils all around to far corners of the earth. So that's a very long answer to your question of how it began, but that is the initial stages of Coda.
And certainly I know that it was at a conference in Finland
Mhm.
that Connections with Ireland, Catherine was there, and in a later conversation, I know Catherine will pick up on that link, if you like. But something that's just, I suppose, going through my mind whilst you were talking about being between two worlds, and if you like, the being the ending, if you like.
Mhm.
It's also an ending, which is also a beginning. It's an entry point into another world.
Mhm.
And I just wonder what's tied up with the gap in between in
Mhm.
terms of feeling your own identity.
Mhm.
Because who
Mhm.
am I suppose the questions that are going through my mind are, who am I?
Mhm.
In this world, I'm this person.
Mhm.
And if you like, in the inner world, and then in the outer world, I'm this person.
Mhm.
But who is that person? Because it's the same person who is
Mhm.
constantly moving between the two.
Mhm. Yes, I think we're masters at mediating between two worlds, which is difficult as a child, but there are roles that you're put in sometimes where it's too adult for a child to have to in, interpret a legal situation or medical situation that's very complex. So, but those were the roles that I felt I was born into and certainly mediated. Um, but then out in the hearing world, I felt like I had free reign and I could do as I wished. But it was that internal feeling, as I said, there was a core of something missing. And that core became identified and were developed as I met Codas, people with whom I could sit and talk about experiences with this that and they had a shared frame of reference and I didn't have to explain or teach. They could just understand. I could breathe around these people. Um, it's as though I set up this organization not because I knew of a Coda identity, but I knew of what wasn't there, and the puzzle piece fit so that it was around Codas where I could feel relaxed and not put in particular roles. And I don't want to make it sound as though in the hearing world it's awkward and I can't per- function well, or the deaf world. There's comfort in those worlds, but the Coda world, that's where I found my people.
I think it is exactly that, isn't it? Being surrounded by people where you don't need to explain anything,
Mhm.
that you can simply be, that there isn't this need for a filtering process,
Mhm. Mhm.
that it's a common unspoken language, maybe.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I learned at a very early age when hearing people would come to the door and I would see the expressions on their face when they could see that my mother was deaf. I could see, or when the phone call came and someone said, "Are your parents home?" And I explained my parents were deaf. And so I would relay a message and they'd say, "Okay, well, thank you. We'll call back tomorrow." I knew that there was a big gap here at an early age. Um, but I didn't really want to explain it to them because I didn't want to hurt their feelings. It was hard for me. So I sat with that. And then But I can come back together now with Codas and talk about those experiences. And it just, it felt like such a relief to be able to do that. And that's why I continue to do what I do. I have to say that I am the founder of the organization. However, today I'm here presenting myself.
Ex-
Um, I'm not representing the organization. And although I was on the board for 30 years, it was time for me. I chose to retire from the board and let new energy, new growth come in, because that's the way the organization will continue and grow. So I did want to clarify that I'm speaking for myself, not for the organization, although I'm very involved with the organization, doing committee work and writing articles for the newsletter and so on.
I mean, what I want to do is just jump in very quickly, and it was because we were starting on a personal level, I didn't want to jump straight in with your incredible achievements, because I will do now, because you are, I think, quite possibly one of the most modest people that I've come across. You were ahead of your time. You sensed a need for something and went seeking for it without necessarily knowing what it was,
Mhm.
but knew that it was needed, and were brave enough to go out there. So really, as the founder of Coda International, I've been Googling like mad in the last day, just looking at what Coda International does, the various courses that are run, the supports that are there uh, for young deaf
Mm.
and families. And it's an incredible organization to have founded and continue to support very quietly. As I say, I'm struck by your modesty. The one thing in the association I would love for you to just expand on a little is the scholarship.
Mhm. Yes.
That really touched something deep in me, because I really believe it's working with youngsters that you can make a big difference.
Mm.
And it is in that, whether it's finding the identity, finding where they need help, but getting them to a place where they know who they are.
Mm. Mhm.
So can you talk about the scholarship, how that came about, the
Right.
type of things that,
Yes.
yeah.
Uh, yes, I can do that. And I have to start with a funny story that Coda had set up the idea for the scholarship, and we had been doing it for a number of years. And I was very honored that one year at a board meeting, the board bestowed this honor on me of calling it the Millie Brothers Scholarship. It was never originally intended to have my name, but nonetheless, it was an honor. But my mother was quite concerned. She said, "Well, if you have a scholarship named after you, people may think you're dead." So I assured her, no, no, I don't think that that's necessarily the case, but I've got such a kick out of it. So the scholarship, this goes back to information I learned as a graduate student at Gallaudet. I I was raised in a deaf household, but when I went to Gallaudet, I had the opportunity to pursue education and information and research and statistics about deaf families. And I learned that, well, my parents were very fortunate to have been able to go to college back in their day. I didn't realize how few opportunities there were for many deaf families. And I did learn how deaf adults were either very underemployed, or there was just such a vast potential with deaf people. And oftentimes they weren't just given the opportunity to reach potential. So as a result, families, maybe didn't earn the income that they should have been earning or could have been earning had they had the opportunities that they were perfectly capable of doing. So as a result, the scholarship idea came around, and we wanted to further the opportunities for codas in families who might not be able to afford higher education. So we actually set up the scholarship so that it's an essay competition in addition to having a full range of criteria. And I don't personally do this, and this is another funny story. When people see Millie Brothers Scholarship, they may approach me and go, "My daughter didn't get it. Why?" Oh, no, I don't make the I don't make the choices. There's a committee. It's run through university. It's a Coda committee that's done a fabulous job. So they annually they get these written essays and the transcripts and the written information to review before and selections are made. And this is worldwide. Anybody in the world, any coda in the world can apply for this scholarship. And the essays that we get are so inspiring from these younger generation of codas talking about living between deaf and hearing worlds. And I'm just so proud and honored that we can continue this tradition, because I think it's one of the most important things that we do. And looking at the youth really does inspire me to continue on. Even though I'm not on the board, I'll continue on and work until it's just not possible any longer.
Well, it's certainly creating a lasting legacy. And really, isn't that what most of us want? That the work that we do is meaningful, that makes a difference to people's lives. And especially when there are roadblocks put in our way, particularly if if there are situations that are difficult to get over because, if you like, people in what is perceived to be the normal world create those roadblocks. If we can give opportunities that help people find their way, find their voice through whatever means, I just think it's work worth doing, and it really is creating that legacy. So your mother may well have been right, but Millie, you're not dead. Well, no, but the Millie Brothers Scholarship will go on and on and on, and that to me is a lasting tribute to you, because you started something and just had this inner belief it was needed and it would happen.
And I often say, yes, I founded Coda, but really Coda found me. It found the identity in me, the pride in me, to look at the rich heritage and legacy I received from my parents, and enabled me to look at who I am and put all the pieces together and turn around and hopefully provide that option for other people.
You've reminded me of the Rumi quote. Doesn't it go along the line, something that which you are seeking is seeking you?
There you go. Absolutely.
I've got a couple of last questions for you, but this one I think is very relevant, seeing where the world, I suppose, is going, the huge advances in technology, attitudes. You know, as I say, I really see changes, but some of them are slower in coming. But also, I think it's important, having had the upbringing that you did, working in the environment that you created, where things didn't need explaining. What would you advise deaf parents to say to their children?
My first instinct was to come up with the sign, of course, I love you. Um, I think just that acknowledgement that there is a difference between hearing and deaf, but that we are a part of each other, an important part of each other. The rest of the world may not quite understand that, but that's the beauty of some of these young camps now that we see for younger kids, for people to be able, young kids to be able to see the that the different parts of them don't have to be separate. They can come together and make a strong identity and a sense of pride. um, I'd never speak for a deaf person. I only can speak from my experience as a coda. um, but I know that uh, I would like to see more curriculum, say, for deaf parents to have access to parenting and family issues that are a little bit different from the hearing world and their issues. I could see working together with deaf parents to come up with this, because I can never speak as a deaf parent. I can only speak as their child. But it's just that love and that bond that is so strong, and the understanding of the identity being, I would say, same, but a little bit different.
I like that. I really like that. And for people like me, people who unwittingly blunder in or take diversions because we don't quite know how to handle things, any small tips that you could give?
Mm. I'm very open to responding to questions, answering questions, talking about my experience, but not usually unless a door is opened. I don't, if somebody has questions, I would be so much more comfortable for them to ask me rather than just to remain silent and stiff about something. Uh, so I guess just that feeling of accessibility, the sense of that you're an ally. You may not know a lot of information, but you're an ally. You're open-minded
Yeah.
about things. That's really the key.
So jump in.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, this is a good start, isn't it?
Well, it
Shows like
is.
this.
It is. And I really do thank you for that. And if you don't mind, Millie, I will come back to you, because I will have different questions as I learn more and more. As I say, my learning is like this at the moment. I've always believed, we are so much more than we believe we are. And it is down to that, being okay with who you are and how you show up in the world. And I think it's as much about how you show up in the world as to how people then can respond to you. And all I would say is, every deaf person I have encountered has been, so open.
Mm,
They have made it easy for me. It's a little bit of, if I can draw a parallel with not being able to speak a very difficult language or another language, if you make a little bit of an effort,
yes.
that's all somebody wants. And it's really getting out of your own way. Forget yourself. This isn't about, it isn't about me if I'm in that situation. It's about how we
Mhm.
can make that connection and communicate. Thank you.
Yes, thank you
Big
so
thank
much.
you.
Yes, and I look forward to speaking with you again at any point.
I would love that. I would love that.
And
Millie,
thank you
brother,
for our interpreter.
indeed. Thank you. Again, I will just finish off by saying I would love to see Irish Sign Language on the curriculum. I think to me, that would be the ultimate,
Mhm.
because there's no reason why it couldn't be.
Mhm.
Because then I could do more than just say, thank you.
Yes.
We'll talk to you both again. I know we will. Millie,
Great.
thank you. Catherine, thank you.
Mhm. Thanks to you both. Until we meet again.
Thank you.